today.
Neighborhood beautification. That's very important to Detroit. It's very important to block clubs, organizations, and people who live in the community. We got started with 2 lots and a vision of a treehouse center. Because if we can take these blighted lots, Detroit give us grants to be able to do something with them that the community wants, it's a plus because we're bringing our neighborhoods back to where we want them to be, where they should be. All because I live in Detroit.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Week That Was. My name is Saeed Khan, and I know some of you are probably noticing a slight lack of gender diversity. I promise you it is not intentional. Some of our regulars like Barb Engels and Nancy Derringer are traveling, and even my mom said no. So again, this is how the composition is today, but we will try to go ahead and provide you with...
Do I need to do an impersonation or take on a female quality? I mean, what?
You know what? That's a multiple choice question, Ed, and I want you to go ahead and poll that to see what the public says. So we've got pollster Ed Sarpolus, we've got attorney Steve Fishman, and Joel Sklar. Bill Cycli is not available today, and we've got a new addition. Welcome to the show, Reverend W.J. Rideout from the All God's People Church of Redford, and of course we've got co-founder of Deadline Detroit. Roseville, sorry, wrong side of town. Not wrong side of town as in wrong side of town, but other side of town. And we also have, of course, co-founder of Deadline Detroit, Allan Lengel. Now, some of you might have been up late last night watching the finale of the Democratic National Convention. Some of you might have been glued to your respective television sets all week. There was quite a bit of content there. So I thought we'd actually start, Allan, with a couple of videos to set the tone about our discussion regarding the convention.
Time for the speeches, and the headliners were Barack and Michelle Obama.
America, hope is making a comeback.
America's ready for a new chapter. America's ready for a better story. We are ready for a President Kamala Harris.
Growing up, we moved a lot. I will always remember that big Mayflower truck packed with all our belongings, ready to go to Illinois, to Wisconsin.
Just name swing states. Just say that you moved to swing states, that you moved to Michigan, to Georgia, you moved to Arizona. Just make it up.
I was talking to Allan earlier. I'm like, man, if you could afford Mayflower, you know, you're probably doing pretty well. I remember the old U-Haul with the tow winch in the back and navigating that. So thoughts about the content of the convention, thoughts about the vibe of the convention. Anybody? Yeah, Fish.
I definitely watched a lot more than I generally don't turn the TV on, but I was watching. I was impressed with almost every single thing. I think they did a perfect job, honest to God. And what I like the best, obviously, as opposed to watching anything having to do with the Republicans, is just it reflected diversity of the country so much. I mean, the speakers, the citizens that were there, and this is really the America that we live in. And if you listen to the Republicans, they make it sound like, you know, it's 1952 or something like that. I thought that was the most significant thing. And I really liked the business about hope and the future and talking about the future and talking about what it would look like with a guy like Trump and his crew in there. It would be no real future. So I thought everything that I watched at least was terrific.
Reverend Rideout, how do you think it went? And I know it's a little bit premature because it's not Sunday yet, but how do you think your congregation would respond to it?
Well, first, I would say that it's better than Make America Great Again. Hope is always the best choice. We hope in God first, right? And hoping that everything will fall in place. I think that the Democratic National Convention was tremendously a lot better than the Republican convention. The support was overwhelming. To bring in the former president Hillary Clinton, Secretary, and former President Barack Obama, and the other figures, which brought a home run for the Democratic National Convention. And it sounded like Barack Obama was running for president again, but I thought it was very nice.
Ed, there was, I from what I remember from the Republican National Convention, and I might have actually seen a little bit more of it than Fish did, I don't recall too many former Democrats or ex-Democrats taking the stage, but at the Democratic National Convention, there sure were a lot of those, or at least Republicans that were never Trump, or even former members of his staff. The messaging was quite different, don't you think?
Well, my initial reaction to the fact this was a Republican convention. We had to fight. We had fiscal conservatism. We had the border issue. We had the flags. Okay, we had a military. We had basically what they did is stole all the traditional Republican imagery and put it in the Democratic thing, and people loved it. Okay, even Mike Odell showed up for it. It was that good.
Yeah, Alan, I think you got a video about Mike Lindell.
I do. Now, here the setup for this is Mike Lindell shaved his mustache and went incognito, allegedly, to the DNC and being like a reporter. So here's the little thing.
So what did Lindell accomplish after all this? Well, he got into a shouting match with a 12-year-old content creator called Noah and lost. Again, this is a real clip of a real person who is a close ally and friend of Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump in a disguise at a Democratic convention arguing with a child.
There was one down in Georgia, 3 Democrats.
I'm from Georgia.
Okay, there's 3 Democrats in Georgia in the summer of 22. She's a good friend of mine. She got 0 votes in her own precinct.
Who is it?
So Brenda, I'm not telling you her last name on your stuff.
I see. Any source.
257,000 votes. This happened last week. A judge ruled in Georgia that are missing from the 2020 election. This just came out. You're behind.
So your source is trust me, bro? That's your source?
You know, in 40 years, I want that kid to be my president. Wow, that was amazing. So, Joel, you heard? Did you watch a lot of the convention? And if so, what speeches really struck out for you?
What struck out to me most in any individual speech was just the mood, the lightness, the positivity, the optimism. You have a complete juxtaposition of the party of darkness and evil, which I think are the Republicans, and the party of light and hope, which are the Democrats. And I think that was real clear. There was joy. The theme was joy, and you could feel it, and it was exciting, and it was inspirational. And so I thought that Kamala did a phenomenal job with her speech. It was so relatable. She's far different than I thought she was a month ago. She's very relatable. She's very human. I think she's going to do great. And I was just thrilled. So I left feeling great.
Well, one other thing that's an important thing is that she was in charge of it. They knew what they were doing, and they basically shut down the whole Gaza debate publicly on stage. They took a position. They didn't run from it. They didn't hide from it. We're going to be there. She didn't ignore it. She just shut it down. And I think that was the best thing that happened because of the fact it was all about her and the future. Because typical Democratic events would have on stage and fighting this. She basically said, no, it's about us and the election and me running for office.
And there was quite a bit of criticism, Ed. I think particularly, you heard that around like the Arab and the Muslim communities, especially locally, that the uncommitted movement had made a request or a demand to have a Palestinian American on stage, especially in light of the fact that there was the couple whose son is still held captive in Gaza. I thought what was really interesting was that they also mentioned the need for a ceasefire. UAW President Sean Fain mentioned and said that the UAW supports the same ceasefire that they were demanding since December. There were a lot of representatives who made that case.
That's what I was saying. They handled it professionally.
Yeah, and also the fact that she mentioned, along with, of course, mentioning about the hostages and support for Israel. The first candidate that I can remember mentioned the right for Palestinian security, dignity, and also freedom and self-determination. And from what a lot of the analysts seem to have been saying after the fact, that part of the speech drew the most applause in the arena. So absolutely right, Ed. I think that was there. Allan, what did you think?
I think they did a great job of trying to portray Kamala as really a fighter, a tough person, a leader, someone who cares for justice. I think they really worked on that theme, and I think it was very effective. It's interesting that, look, the Gaza thing is horrible. I think we all, are in agreement that we want a ceasefire, that we want the hostages returned. I think the problem with letting somebody go on there and start talking about this is genocide and screw Israel and stuff like that, I think it would have, and there's been some tension, I think, between some of the Black community and the Arab community, where the Arab community is mad that Blacks are supporting Kamala and aren't putting more pressure on her. And so there's tension there. And I think it was a love fest. And I think it would have really, I think Kamala did a great job of addressing it, saying, yes, we support Israel, but yes, we support the dignity we want of the Palestinians, basically saying we want them to have a sovereign nation, all that stuff. And I think she did it as best she can. And look, I think the administration is really working diligently right at this very moment, even to try to get a ceasefire there. And so,
well, the problem
one factor with that, though, Allan, is that I know that the uncommitted movement did offer to present the speech to be vetted ahead of time, and that this is from back channels, that they were planning on actually endorsing Harris from the stage. So some will regard it as a missed opportunity. Some will regard it as being sort of a misguided optics, but that provides hopefully a little bit better picture. Joel,
I was going to say real quick before Joel, somebody sent me a video this morning where in the Gaza there are some demonstrations against Sinwar and Hamas saying, "Give the hostages back. We're tired of this. We want peace. We want to get back to a normal life." So it's a little more complicated. I think sometimes Hamas is left out of the equation of this whole thing, and they're part of it.
Well, the big debate will happen this Saturday at the Democratic Convention in Detroit, because that's where the battle will be held, because they've got some petitions that they want to promote. This Saturday will be very big.
Gentlemen, I think that when the word anti-Semitic comes up, we have to be careful. Both parties have to be careful, because we can't make one race or human race more valuable than the next. And the problem is that now the different Arab Palestinians, and I have some I'm connected with, as well as have a Chaldean at my church. I get all kind of views from multi-racial, different race groups of people. But at this point in time, we have a problem when people are overlooking babies getting killed. And yet the Democratic Party fights for abortion. So it's kind of a toss up in the air here, where if we don't care about who we abort, then surely they're acting like they don't care about other babies in other countries.
Well, I don't know that. I'm not sure that it's we don't care. To be honest, we have extremists on both sides. I think the Netanyahu administration, Ben-Gvir, Smotrich are. And then we have another extremist on the other side, Sinwar, who is basically trying to figure out, is Iran, is Hezbollah willing to go in all out in war? If they are, he's going to pass on peace. He doesn't care about he's got one goal, to destroy Israel. He doesn't care about the Palestinian people. But Netanyahu doesn't really care about the Palestinian people, and certainly his administration doesn't. So we have on both sides, we have extremists, and we have to have people intervening and holding them by the throat to make them have a ceasefire.
And I think isn't the Democratic convention in Lansing tomorrow?
I think so. What I'm trying to say, the fact that's where there's going to be some big battles, because there's some people running for high office on the school boards and whatever like that, and there's an issue that is how the Democrats going to handle that, because that's where the big debate's going to be. It could be have a ruckus in that.
Well, I think that there's probably going to be some activity when it comes to maybe the U of M Board of Regents and also some of these governing bodies. So that's going to be really where I think the energy is going to be in the room. Joel.
Yeah, I just want to kind of parrot what Barb just posted, is that the abortion issue is a constitutional issue. Women have a right over their bodies and their reproductive rights, I believe. The other issue is how you define baby. Is a baby a fetus? Is a baby upon conception? So comparing the Gaza and the god-awful killing of civilians with abortion is just a false equivalence. One is a constitutional right that should not be taken away and was, and the other is just horror. So I just don't see them being equivalent in any way.
Well, I beg the difference. I think that we don't have the choice to give life or take a life. So when we talk about babies being aborted, that's a major problem. It is, and we cannot turn our heads to that. Both parties have some corruption within them and thoughts that are not like they should be. I agree with Allan that I won't say that people don't care, because it's not everybody that don't care. It's just that's why people are not out to vote. I'm heading a Souls to the Polls voting campaign, but it's very hard when we got people that are stressing that Republicans and Democrats are not being truthful in their dealings and their statements. So it's really rough to make a decision as to who to vote for when you got one saying abortion is legal, when you got one group saying we should allow a war and shouldn't allow a war. I believe that there should be, like Allan said, there needs to be someone to bring accountability to these leaders to make sure that before they make rash decisions, they make the right ones and think about it and revisit what we're facing.
Ed, usually after a convention, the party enjoys a bit of a bump by a few points. Here we are right on the threshold of Labor Day weekend, after which generally it's considered the start of the real nitty-gritty of the election. I think it's the day after Inauguration Day now, I mean, because the election cycle starts earlier and earlier. How much of a bump do you think that Harris is going to enjoy, and how sustainable do you think it's going to be?
I think the issue for her right now is sustainability of where she's at right now. The only state that's causing problem really is Pennsylvania. When you look at the tracking polls, that's the area where she hasn't consistently broke 50% right now. Actually, Trump leads her in Pennsylvania. So I think I'm looking more for a stability of growth than I am looking for a bump. Because if it's a bump, it can disappear. If it's a growth, then it's going to stabilize going into the election day. Because that's what I'm looking for. Because she's got some problems out in Nevada, in Arizona. So to me, I'm looking for a slope versus a bump.
Now, one of the things, I mean, although her speech was very well delivered, very energetic, I don't know, I actually felt the same vibe during this convention that I did in 1980 with the Reagan Republican National Convention. That was, of course, what used to be Joe Louis Arena, rest in peace. That kind of energy, and that energy certainly served Reagan very well to take him across the threshold on Election Day. But from the standpoint of Harris, the speech seemed to lack a lot of specificity when it came to policy. You think it would be a good idea, particularly before her first debate with Trump on September 10th, that she rolls out in a series of major policy speeches, maybe one on foreign policy, one on immigration, and one on the economy and inflation? Steve, you're shaking your head.
That will be done on the stump. I wouldn't do anything to give the Republicans an advantage to start running ads prior to the debate. I would not do anything. I would these are stump speeches, not an event. You got to remember, we haven't agreed whether or not she's going to do the Fox before the ABC station. Okay, she says, I said first the ABC, then we'll do the Fox. So that hasn't been worked out. So there's no way that she's going to do that. Because all the other thing for you, you talk about Ronald Reagan. Guess what they're running on the YouTube and all the other stations? They're running Reagan ads where he's talking about are you better off, whatever. They're already trying to do the ADL cycle.
Reaganomics.
Yes, they're already doing it.
And also, just to put in a plug for the trailer, of which I have nothing to do, Dennis Quaid as Ronald Reagan in the biopic movie coming out. Yes. So hide your kids. Steve, you were shaking your head. Yeah.
I agree with Ed 5,000%. I don't think in any way, shape, or form she should give a speech like the type you're talking about. And I predicted on this show before. I predicted it in the gym with my friends, and I'm predicting it again. If he shows up on September the 10th, it's going to be a complete fucking disaster for him because he can't control himself for 90 minutes. This is an old man who knows nothing other than anger and vituperation, and he cannot control himself, and something bad is going to happen. And the people who are not all MAGA crazy people are going to say, wait a minute, are you kidding me? That's my prediction. That's why I agree with that. I wouldn't make any specific policy.
Do you think he'll show, Steve? Do you think he'll show up? Do you think he'll somehow abort? I hate the word. Somehow get rid of the not show up at the debates. I mean, she's going to eviscerate.
He's going to send RFK to eat Kamala Harris.
So on that, we're expecting today an announcement by Robert Kennedy Jr. in Phoenix, Arizona. He's already filed the paperwork to withdraw his name from the ballot over there. It seems as though he's going to drop out of the race and possibly then give an endorsement to Trump.
Well, he's already arranged that. He's already arranged that. The issue is going to be the bigger one for us in Michigan. Is going to be is what does with Cornwell? What happens with the Benson removing him from the ballot here in Michigan?
Oh, with Cornel West.
Yes, Cornel West. Yes.
Yeah. But from the, I don't know, Ed. I thought I saw a poll that said that RFK Jr. was tracking 9.7% of the vote in Michigan.
No, that was like 5 or 6, and that was a national poll. That was close. Okay. I did a poll on that. But the bottom line is, once RFK disappears, that discussion about him goes away. Okay.
So Nancy just chimed in and said that RFK Jr. to replace J.D. Vance as vice president. You know, Alan, that the last time I checked was almost a satirical comment. And I think you have a video in Nancy's absence that you can show about satire.
Yes. Let me find that here. Now that we always said we'll play this when Nancy's not here. It's from the early 2000s by Mad TV. It has nothing to do with anything, but I've been wanting to play it, and Nancy's been like, no.
Who ate all the gabagool?
No more gabagool for you. The doctor said it's bad for you.
I don't give a. Wanna get some more gabagool?
What am I, your servant?
You know what? I don't need this.
You want some gabagool? Why don't you get it from one of your little Russian who?
Tell you what, why don't you stop breaking my ball?
Let's talk about your anger towards your mother.
Anger? Anger? Anger what?
Well, you're clearly angry at her.
Yeah, no shin genius insight you got. Who are you, from Ray Charles? Let me tell you something. I didn't have anger at her, all right? I hated that
Nancy, how can you not find that funny? I mean, come on. Speaking of the gobbledygook. Well, okay. Now they're plotting a coup against us. I see, Barb and Nancy. Speaking of crazy, Donald Trump was in Howell and was addressing a crowd there. I don't know if anybody saw the commentary by Charlemagne the God, who said that he felt that Trump actually is looking for an exit ramp, that his heart isn't in it, that he's very low energy, that there's maybe even a tone of resignation. Any thoughts about that?
Last night he was going crazy on Truth Social while Kamala was delivering stuff, going, "This is bullshit," and going on and on and on. So, Steve, go ahead.
No, I don't know about that. He's going to drop out. I mean, I don't see that.
No, I don't think he's going to do that. Yeah,
but you got to think about, when you're thinking about some other person, you have to try to think like them. Now, here's a guy who he's a bully, and he had a perfect place with Biden, who couldn't really respond. And look what he's dealing with now. He's going to be on that stage for 90 minutes with a black female, the two types of people he has the most problems dealing with, black people and females. And she's going to be drilling him like a good prosecutor will. And that's why I see him. I don't know the answer, Joel, when you said, do I think he won't show up? I wouldn't be surprised if he came up with some excuse. He's sick, he's this, he's that, because somebody has got to be telling him that it's going to be a disaster for him. So
and then what do you do is we could go back to Michelle Obama, to Trump. Why are you wanting to go after a black man's job?
right.
That was quite a line. I mean, you're looking at Trump coming in with sounding a little bit more subdued on the stump than before, leaving Vance to do a lot of his attacking. The same old talking points that we've heard, gosh, going all the way back to what was it, Willie Brown and under Bush, when it comes to race baiting. Is there anything that the Republicans can put out that could really hurt Harris now?
Be something out of her personal life, it'd have to be, or something she did. It's tired to get Benghazi or something. But other than the personal life, I don't see that.
Well, I mean, they were trying to suggest that she advanced in career because of certain men and favors, but that didn't really.
Yeah, right. That's what Trump did, and it's one of the things. She's been on her knees all her life.
Yeah. So, Steve.
Well, I think the answer to your question, I think we have seen it since she became the nominee. They've tried all kinds of little different things, trying to throw things out there. Look what they tried to do with the football coach, with Walls. The guy's 24 years in the National Guard, and they're making it sound like he was a sissy and he didn't want to go over there, and then he decided to run for office. J.D. Vance uses his Marine service as a big deal. He was a correspondent, for God's sake. I'm not saying I don't appreciate the fact that he was in the Marine Corps, but he's not exactly Audie Murphy out there, that was taking on the Japanese all by himself. It's. I think they've tried those things, Saeed, and they're not working. Nobody's accepting any of it. And I think what you said too, it's the same tired stuff. And the public, other than the MAGA, whatever percentage that it is, and Ed can always tell us what percentage it is, the regular public is sick of it. They're just tired of it.
Well, Daily Show showed all the ads from Daily Show, redid all the ads and do the new ads, and Trump is saying the same thing every 4 years.
She's got the money behind her. She's got the corporation behind her. There's nothing that they can do at this point to throw a red flag in there to stop people from gathering with Kamala Harris. The point is that Trump thought that he was going to end up still fighting against Joe Biden. And it turned out that they were trying to figure out what good candidate could be the poor person of choice. And so out of all people, here comes the vice president, and here comes a woman, and a black woman at that. And so they knew that she was going to be a weapon against Trump.
I was happy to see that Biden was loyal to her and she was loyal to him, and during that whole 2-week debate, because I think that only happened because remember, he's very mad at Obama never even discussing Biden with him. So what I'm saying is because Kamala was able to maintain support for him and him for her. That's why this happened. If she had broke with him, it wouldn't have happened.
Reverend, I have a question for you. You're members of your congregation. Does race matter in this? Does it matter that Kamala is black and that or are they just saying, we don't care, we're going for who we believe philosophically is the best? What are you getting in the congregation? Well,
yes and no. I have a multicultural race group of people as members in Congress of All God's People Church. They've all given me their opinions as to this election, and Trump is a no-brainer. We know we can't let him get back in office, period. He's not going to make America great again. And I told everybody on MSNBC, if you vote him in, he was going to cause chaos all over America, which we got that with the riot on the 6th of January. Here we have a female woman and a black lady who the America women want a woman president. And there's really nothing we can do about it. And then with the elite of America and the elitism, if you allow me to say that, the corporate greed and the corporations, they want her. And there's nothing people can do to stop it. And so when a person talks with common sense and with concern for the people, surely they're going to gang up with that person and come against a person like Trump. It's a no-brainer. So my my congregants, I've already said that. And then there's some that are saying that it doesn't matter who we vote for, still going to be the same. I get a lot of comments all over. Bottom line, they ask me who I'm voting for and what I'm going to do. And I know that I'm not going to stand with Trump. I'm not going to vote with Trump. And I think that I tell the congregants this, and this is what we need to tell everybody in Michigan. The vote for the president is very enormous. But the main voting is right here in our districts and in our states, in our cities, in our towns, locally. That's what counts.
Well, as a matter of fact, 1% of Oakland County is Indian. Okay, the vote that got Biden elected 4 years ago was the Indian vote. The largest growing voting population in the United States for the last 10 years is the Indian population. That has been the biggest change.
I know. That's why I put my house for sale. I can't live in Oakland County anymore, man. They're everywhere. I mean, wait a minute. I got to get rediscovered with my roots here. You know, one of the things that one of the contrasts that I saw was that the Central Park Five speak at the DNC, which I thought was such a powerful moment. I mean, Trump was calling for their death penalty, and even after they were categorically vindicated and absolved, he still went in deep on that. Juxtapose that with the fact that his golf course or his club out in New Jersey, Bedminster, is going to be actually hosting a gala for the January 6th rioters. So there you go, as far as something numerical. I thought that the attacks on Governor Walz's son, Gus, by people like Ann Coulter and Dinesh D'Souza was so over the top. I mean, unsurprisingly, I think if Rush Limbaugh wasn't pushing daisies, he would have gone ahead and probably started it. But do you think that is also going to not play well in the heartland?
I agree, yes.
Yeah. Steve?
I think that it's a very, very big mistake for these people to act like that, to forget how many families have situations similar to Walz's son, to Walz's family. It's astounding to me that these people are that short-sighted and small-minded that they don't realize how many people they are offending when they start talking about anybody who has any kind of disabilities. Families have this all around this country. It doesn't matter if you're black or white or Jewish or whatever you are. This is something that's very common, and for them to do something like that, that's what Ann Coulter's a U of M law grad. They needed to tighten up the admissions requirement the year that she went in. That's for sure.
And this is what makes Fish such a consummate lawyer. He didn't break the stride of his cadence when that rather provocative little tidbit came up on the ticker. He took that and molded it into his talk. Well done, you, Fish.
And I like the other fact that what they did, they played on the Democrats when they had the niece of Kamala teach everybody how to pronounce her name. I thought that was so perfect.
That was so cute. Well, before we go to a commercial break, I just want to go ahead and highlight one thing about somebody who does know how to treat kids well. Reverend Rideout is going to be having a backpack and school supply giveaway on September the 8th at his church. There is the information, which is on 25295 Chippendale in Roseville. What a great service. Every kid is going to then get a backpack and a bunch of supplies. God bless you, Reverend Rideout, for going ahead and doing that. It's such a wonderful service. So
thank you.
Now let's go to a commercial.
Neighborhood beautification. That's very important to Detroit. It's very important to block clubs, organizations, and people who live in the community. We got started with 2 lots and a vision of a treehouse center. Because if we can take these blighted lots, Detroit give us grants to be able to do something with them that the community wants, it's a plus because we're bringing our neighborhoods back to where we want them to be, where they should be. All because I live in Detroit.
Now, would that everybody could treat kids as well as Reverend Rideout and his church? This week, we have now news that the young woman, the teen, who was in Judge Kenneth King's courthouse and was treated in the way that she was, in which she was actually shackled and placed in quote-unquote arrest and humiliated, her family is suing the judge for mistreatment for what occurred on the field trip. Reverend Rideout, I notice you're nodding your head on that one.
Well, I have mixed feelings about this one. Obviously, no child or kid or human being should be treated with an injustice. That's what I fight for, against injustices that happen to people. So, no, I believe that Judge Kenneth King made a mistake, a poor mistake of how he dealt with it. However, I do not think that Judge King should be disbarred or unseated as a judge or whatever the case may be because of this one incident. And he has proven down through the years to be an effective, fervent, kind, and loving judge. And there are a lot of judges and attorneys that need to be disbarred. We all know that. that have done horrendous things and horrible things and unethical things. And I do have compassion for the child. I have compassion for her mother. And I mean, that's what I fight for. I mean, why would I not? You know, doesn't matter if it's whoever it is. But however, Judge King has a great representation, Todd Perkins as an attorney and staff. And I believe that he's going to be okay. However, I also know Attorney Harrington, and I know I don't want to say what I want to say, but this is a big, giant publicity movement that that has gotten out of whack. And you guys are attorneys, you know. I feel that it could have been dealt with better. That's my stand on that.
So Stephen Joe, I don't think that the family is asking for this to go before the Judicial Tenure Commission, but on the legal elements of this, and also on the PR elements of this, how do you think it should be handled, Joel?
Well, my guess is going to be there'll be a motion to dismiss filed on judicial immunity. Judicial immunity is absolute. This happened in a courtroom, happened after proceeding. The judicial immunity is, you know, judges protect themselves with judicial immunity. I've sued judges. Judges are liable for administrative decisions, but they're not liable for decisions they make in their courtroom. And this is going to be considered, I think, a judicial act in his judicial capacity, and he's going to be absolutely immune from liability. I would also think that there's going to be 11th Amendment immunity for the court. So they're going to have, this is, I think, again, I think it is publicity. It is an opportunity for that firm to come out and have a press conference, but the reality of the lawsuit, I think it'll get dismissed.
But the problem is not, it doesn't fall under immunity because of the fact that the child was not in a court proceeding. The child was there. Listen, the child was there. Yes, it does matter according to the state law. According to the state law, it matters. But the problem is, I'm praying. I pray that you're right, because I don't want to see Judge Kenneth King silenced because of one incident. I believe he should be given a chance. He did reach out to the family. He did apologize. He did say he wanted to try and counsel and monitor her and help her. I'm praying that some peace come out of this.
Yeah, the remedy for this is Judicial Tenure Commission. If they have a problem, go file with them. But I'm telling you, as a matter of law, judicial immunity is absolute. It is, the jurisdiction is considered broad. It's going to get dismissed. And if it doesn't get dismissed at the trial court level, it'll go on appeal and it'll get dismissed there. The Sixth Circuit is very protective of judges.
Fishman.
Very protective. As is the United States Supreme Court. So I just think it's going to go away.
Fish.
Yep. You're right.
Judge King is probably the hardest working judge over there. He sits on the preliminary exams and he's hearing the most serious cases all the time. That in and of itself doesn't make it okay as to what happened with this young girl. But when it comes down, the Rev is exactly right. When it comes down to things like the Tenure Commission, what they're looking for and what they should be looking for is people who do these things repeatedly, who are, they're late to court for 6 years in a row. They've had 14 different incidents where this kind of thing happens. I would be very surprised if it gets anywhere, if the Tenure Commission even takes the case up. He did one thing, okay? He said what he said. He contacted the family. And you got to look at his entire record as a judge, and his entire record as a judge is absolutely excellent. And I know because I've been in front of him back in the day, before I kind of stopped going to state court. So I'm hopeful. I kind of really, Rev, you and I agree. I'm hopeful that everybody will learn something from this. And I'm sure that Judge King has learned something from this. And he's going to go, and he's done a lot of stuff for the youth too. I'm sure that Rev knows this. He does all kinds of things for the youth. And he's looking at, if this had been 40 years ago, nobody would have said anything about anything. It's the same way how parents raised when we were kids, the things my father did. If you do them now, who the hell knows? You might wind up in jail. It's just a different time. I agree also with Joel. The lawsuit, I'm so sick and tired of this kind of crap. Something happens, and within 3 days, it's almost always the same firm. They're out there having a huge press conference, and all they're really trying to do is it's free advertising. Instead of have another sign up on the Lodge Expressway, you go out there and people say, "Oh, look at this! What great lawyers!" So that's my call.
We'll have to buy some signs for you, Steve and Joel.
We need them.
Hey, let me tell you something.
Don't forget Bill Cycli. He's the third in this program.
You will never see a criminal lawyer with the sign. Any criminal lawyer that's got any sense, you don't put signs out for criminal lawyers, because you know what? The reason that plaintiffs' lawyers can do it is because the prospective plaintiffs, don't have to put up any of their own money. So when Sam Bernstein says, it's a free call or you don't have to pay. If a criminal lawyer did that, I'll tell you exactly what will happen. You'll get 50 calls from somebody who has serious felonies. You know how much money they'll want to pay you? $500.
Yes, I agree. I understand.
I think that's why the Cochran law firm wasn't advertising too much in the 90s either, Steve. So
I'll say one thing too. I've known Judge King a long time. I think he's been a great judge. This was you can't defend what he did in this instance, but I think and I've talked to him many times about how frustrated he is with youth crime. And I think sometimes you get a little jaded and you lose a little perspective. I think maybe it's not so bad that he takes a little break from the bench. But I think he's been a great judge, and he really cares about the community. And I think his frustration maybe was let out on this young
It was just old school discipline. It was old school discipline, is how I kind of say
Exactly.
But it was old school discipline, man. The guy tried to teach a lesson in court. You got to respect the courtroom. You can be. I've been in court where people falling asleep, and judges get angry. They'll send a bailiff over. They'll say, "Hey, wake up." So he's just conducting his business in his courtroom and trying to show these kids. This is a formal proceeding. This is like being in church, Reverend. That's what court is like. And I think he used some old school, tactics. Maybe they don't go over, but I think his heart was in the right place. I think he's a generally good man. My dealings with him was all decent, and I think he came from a good place, not a bad place.
I think we live in a climate now where you doubling down seems to be more common than simply saying, you know what, I was wrong. Having some contrition, and maybe because the end result is that people treat you, even if you are contrite, with the same punitive measure as if you were doubling down. And I wonder if that has a lot to do with people not taking a step back and saying, you know what, mea culpa.
Right.
Reverend.
My problem is that they took this case so fast when we have people who are murdered every day by corruptive cops and other people and racist demeanors that are happening out in our city everywhere, all over the world. And they take a long time to prosecute those that committed murder and senseless beatings, where here's a judge that's in the courtroom was trying to stir a young lady in the right direction, trying to discipline her according to the court form. However, they came out and they just bum rushed to crucify him, the news media, other people. And I feel that, again, this is kind of over the top, address the issue, but it's over the top that he should be, like I said, disbarred or unseated or whatever the case may be. I agree that we need to bring some kind of medium to this. He's trying to do what he can. I spoke to him. I can talk. because I spoke to him. I've even had a little counseling with him. I'm praying for him. I'm hoping the best for him. Again, I worked at 36th District Court for a number of years, being with the courts as a court officer and with Frank Murphy. And I know how hard it is to deal with uncooperative people when they come in the courtroom.
I think we've lost the Reverend.
Disrespecting disrespecting the police and everything. So we have to address all the issues, not just one, and we can't just be one-sided on this.
So another case which was also reported at Deadline Detroit's website was that of a Rochester Hills doctor charged with videotaping hundreds of children and women, including at a children's swim school. Omer Ejaz was charged with a series of criminal sexual misconduct charges. The sheriff's department found 15 external hard drives, over 13,000 videos, and they haven't even gotten through all of them. Allan, I know that you were posting that on the Deadline Detroit website.
Right. I mean, it's just. I mean, I think they've charged currently. I think they've charged 5 different cases, but they say there could be hundreds. And I mean, what a breach of trust. This guy. I mean, there were people under procedures, like knocked out procedures, and he had cameras. With them naked. They had, I think he had a camera in a swimming area where kids were changing. I mean, what a crazy violation of trust. And, Steve.
I think that we all recognize that in any profession, you're going to have people who are going to do crazy things like this, whether it's Larry Nassar, whether it was Doc Anderson back when we were playing in Michigan, the things that he did to all of us. These things are going to happen, and I think it's good. This is one time where I actually think it's good that there's publicity about it, so people can go, God damn, and you start thinking about that stuff if you're making arrangements to have a doctor or whatever it is. But in a society this large, these are things that are going to happen, and the public needs to be aware of it. I haven't read enough about it. Did somebody report it to the police? Is that how they wound up getting a search warrant?
It's actually his wife. She I guess they were having issues, but she reported it, and now she's actually requesting a TRO for herself and for her kids, because she says that his family apparently has money, and she's worried that he's going to be able to post the $2 million bond and might come after her and the children. So yeah, it's a real hot mess. To be sure.
Now, see, cases like that's something that you run and you rush to arrest a person. These kind of people, like Steve said, they're in all walks of life, all professions. And when you've got a person with a perverted, like this doctor, he should be, his license to practice medicine should be taken all over the world. He should never, ever be able to practice medicine ever or deal with patients anymore. We can't trust them. I wouldn't trust it happened to them. It could be your people or your family, your kids tomorrow. So
he's going to prison. He's going to prison.
He needs to be there because
he'll go for a decent length of time, just like the cancer guy. It's not going to be a slap on the wrist for a guy like that.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, I'm not sure even if he's actually a full U.S. citizen. From the reporting, it suggested that maybe he's a green card holder, which means that after his sentence is served, he would be deportable.
Exactly. And you said it just the right way. Sometimes people think because a person's not a citizen, you just deport them. That's not how it works in our system. You do your time and then you get deported.
Yeah, because and partly because we can't necessarily be sure what the system would be in the country to which you'd be deported, in this case India, whether they would let him out on some technicality and all and cause harm there. Well, before we go to our last segment, I do want to go ahead and call attention to the passing of someone else. Phil Donahue passed away this week at the age of 88. Wow, what a transformative individual in the field of media, in the field of talk shows. Just reflections on Phil. Yeah, Alan.
Well, I think the one thing that he did establish a format, and I think he opened the door for Oprah Winfrey to really sort of take it to different heights. I thought Oprah Winfrey, when she spoke at the DNC, I thought she was going to say, "Everybody, reach under the seat. You've got a new." But I think he was, as you say, transformative, and he did change TV, as Michael Pappas says.
Michael Pappas says.
Well, I think of the fact is I was getting real tired of Michael Douglas, so having a come on up the thing of carrying a good on conversation. Look, remember he went from a very small audience and it spread everywhere. So he started a lot of those talk shows, going on forward. He changed the whole style of the conversation.
And he started in a relatively small TV market. He was in Dayton, Ohio.
That's what I mean. That's where I was at there when he started his station. I was working there. Yes.
Wow. And he married that girl.
He married that girl. That woman. That would be good. That girl, Marlo Thomas. Well, I mean, a couple of my memories of watching Donahue. Well, first of all, God bless Phil Hartman, and may he and Phil be somewhere up in the sky having a chat. Phil Hartman's impersonation of Phil Donahue was priceless.
Yes.
But I remember in 1990 watching him bring a rap band known as Two Live Crew on the show. And to see Middle America as an audience respond to what was going on, and Luther Campbell brought forward and challenged the whole notion of the First Amendment in a very profound way. So that was one memory that I don't think I'll ever forget, is seeing the whole performative aspect of the Two Live Crew doing face down, ass up. On afternoon television. So and I think it is important to remember that Donahue was also a very strong voice that was anti-war, and actually cost him his job. He was actually terminated for his opposition to the Iraq War. So definitely a man of principle, and as you said, definitely changed the landscape. With that, Alan, let's go to our last segment.
All righty.
Downtown Detroit, Robert Wells, Schmuck of the Week.
You heard it. It's going to be a Schmuck of the Week. And so, Reverend Rideout, since you're a little bit new to this, we're going to kind of get you warmed up to it by going to Ed first.
Mike Odell, Mr. Pillowman.
Lindell.
Excuse me. Lindell, he's the Schmuck of the Week because you're having a debate with a 12-year-old who told you were full of crap, pardon the expression. That's the Schmuck routine, man.
All right. Fish.
Mine is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Not because he's an anti-vax guy, not because he doesn't believe in climate change, not even because of his relationship with bears. But the fact that he is, at least from what we read, is getting ready to abandon his campaign and throw in with Trump because Trump has promised him, you see, that maybe he'll have a cabinet position in the Trump administration. But I would suggest to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is if he believes that, he might want to go talk to all those people that were coming to Trump University that got conned by this guy. The notion of trusting anything that Donald Trump tells you, to me, makes you the Schmuck of the Week, and therefore he's perfect as far as I'm concerned.
Steve, do you think that Kamala took her foot off the pedal a little bit when she was talking about how, as Attorney General in California, she went after for-profit universities, but she didn't mention Trump U, or at least make a little bit of a side glance to it?
I'm sure that they debated about that. You know, every single phrase and word in that speech was planned by a whole group of people. So they probably thought about it and maybe something told them, well, let's just make it a general statement. But look, we've said this a million times. Anybody else, that Trump University con is a classic federal mail fraud, wire fraud case. Anybody else would have done 2-3 years in prison at least for that kind of a con. And this guy skated out of that again, which is why he believes he can get away with everything.
Yeah.
Oh man. Joel.
I'm going to go with Ann Coulter. and those who joined her. You know, I watched that moment when Governor Walz's son said, "That's my dad." I got moved. I mean, that was so genuine and authentic and just beautiful, truly, just pure. And to see someone condemn it or to make fun of it is just so offensive that Ann Coulter, who's offended me a million times and is probably going to schmuck a million times, again, she takes the cake. She deleted that post because she knew how offensive it was and the damage was done and people were piling on. So she's my schmuck, and those who castigated this poor child and made fun of him is to hell with them.
You know, this idea, Joel, about like deleting the tweet and then pretending it never happened. J.K. Rowling did the same thing by deleting 25 tweets about Imani Khalif, the Algerian boxer who won the gold medal a couple of weeks ago in Paris, who was impugned for allegedly being male. And now she, of course, meaning Rowling, is, along with Elon Musk, a defendant in a lawsuit that's been filed by Miss Khalif. So, yeah, I mean, nothing dies on the internet. I don't know how many times people need to recognize that. And I know, Fish, your relationship with immortality is different because your relationship with the internet is different. But something that should serve as a caveat as well for you as well. But I think your footprint on there is probably pretty minimal, so that's good. I was gonna use the Obama gesture, but that has a whole different context altogether. Reverend Rideout.
Whoops, hold on.
All right. Well, guys, I heard what everyone else said. I guess I have to say a different answer. My schmuck of the week definition is for those or anyone who commits discrimination, racism, hate, and hurting people. That's who I say.
All right. Amen to that. That covers a pretty good swath of people, but an important one nonetheless to do that. Allan.
I'm going to say, first of all, Mike Lindell for just being such a goofball. And not only that, but just spreading misinformation. I mean, the guy is just a one-man band of misinformation. The other one is the Livingston County Sheriff, Michael Murphy, who hosted the Trump, whatever you want to call it, where here it is, Trump is not only lying about the crime stats, but here's a guy who's vowed to pardon all these people who assaulted cops on January 6th, and these guys are standing behind him like they're supporting him. I thought it was kind of a very bullshit scene. But
so, speaking of sheriffs, Allan, shout out to Genesee County Sheriff Chris Swanson.
Yay.
Gave quite a speech yesterday at the Democratic National Convention. Very telegenic. I don't know. I see him maybe having a future running for Dan Kildee's former congressional seat up there in Michigan 10. What do you think, Ed?
Well, actually, that was talked about this last time, and he took the nod away because of Rivet. The family Rivet's very big up there in Bay County, and that whole family name. That's why that happened. He was planning on that. He's also talking off to whether to run for governor also.
Wow.
Yeah, he's talking about that. I know the Reverend would know that if you're part of the loop up there.
That's right.
About it. Okay. See, when I saw you nod, I know you're part of that whole Flynn crowd.
Yeah, he wants to be governor. I don't think that he will win. I don't think that he has the billionaires behind him, but nice man, loving man, kind man, good person at heart. You can't get a better person.
Well, the other option for you is to run for mayor of Detroit, because I know there's a couple of reverends thinking about that. So you need to drop your hand into it.
Well, I think I'll leave the politics and politics to those that do them best.
Okay.
I think my job is soul winning for Christ.
So I've got a couple of schmucks. One actually collective or duo is Congressman James Comer from Republican from Kentucky, and Fox News commentator Jesse Waters for no good reason implying that Vice President candidate Tim Walsh is a Chinese sleeper agent. I mean, yeah, you can't make this up. But I have to say that the schmuck of the week deservedly goes to Robert Nunes, principal at Buhach Colony High School, home of the Thunder in Atwater, California, who a back-to-school pep rally gave and received a lap dance from the school mascot, Thor. Shockingly to some of you, Principal Nunes is currently under suspension himself. I was going to say it would be better if he was made to sit in detention with some of the other miscreants, but maybe it's a little bit too premature to be there. But I mean, from the annals of what the hell were you thinking? Or maybe you weren't, to not only give a lap dance but also to receive. I mean, the reciprocity of this principal is just off the charts. So yeah, he's definitely my schmuck of the week. To answer what one of our viewers said, let me guess whether Tim Walz made one trip to China. In fairness, he probably made several, for the simple reason that as a governor, it would make sense to go ahead and have relations with the largest manufacturing country in the world, and also the fact that China sends around the world hundreds, if not thousands, of students, which of course really benefits many universities with out-of-state tuition. Minnesota certainly is home to many very good universities as well. It would certainly be in the same realm as Governor Whitmer or anybody else making junkets around the world to foster and promote businesses. So to go ahead and say somehow the other, he's a Chinese sleeper agent is just really well off the mark. And besides, I'm pretty sure that Jesse Waters and James Comer have their own relationship with China, as it's said. So anyways, well, thank you for another great week. We've gotten now through 2 conventions under our belt, and I'm sure we'll probably have a little bit to talk about over the next 75 days rolling into election time and far beyond. Thank you, Reverend Rideout. And again, September the 8th at the All God's People Church in Roseville, there will be a book bag and school supply giveaway. 500 book bags and supplies will be given away. Thank you again, Reverend, for all that you do. The advocates you saw is there on Chippendale. Thank you, Ed Sarpolus. Thank you, Steve Fishman. Thank you, Joel Sklar. And thank you, and with last word as always, Allan.
Drive home safely.
Have a